Ahoy, this is David Perry with my continuing series of interviews with colleagues and friends around the world about how other parts of the globe are going from the Great Return, or the Great Pause, I should say, into the Great Return. And I'm very happy to have with me now a longtime friend and colleague, Peter Poulos. Peter, welcome.
Thank you, David.
So,
good to be here.
Pardon me?
Good to see you.
Good to see you. For those of you who don't know your long history with San Francisco and California, talk a little bit about the years you spent in California and what made you decide to move to the land of your ancestors.
I moved to California in 1989, like 2 weeks before the earthquake. It'd always been a dream of mine to live in San Francisco. Ever since I could read about the 1906 quake, I wanted to live there. So I moved to California with my girlfriend. She and I lived on Baker Street, like just off the Panhandle. And then, we sort of went our own direction. The two of us.
That earthquake had a significant impact on you.
Sure did. Sure did. Like a lot of people, I worked as a waiter, when I first got there, but I also got a job in politics. I was working on John Van de Kamp's race when he was running for governor. And then, I started working a lot more in politics. I worked for Kevin Shelley when he ran for the Board of Supervisors. You probably remember that, and he won. Then he became board president. I worked for him again when he did that. I worked for Leo McCarthy when he was lieutenant governor of the state for years. Then I decided to start my own business doing fundraising and sort of more focused in the nonprofit world. And so I opened a company called Poulos Brothers, and that ran for quite a long time. In fact, it's still running. But in San Francisco, it was up and running for 15 years, and we raised money for a whole host of charities. At the end of my time in San Francisco, I started doing a little bit of work in the Greek community. So we started a Greek film festival in San Francisco, and actually I'm the founding director of the San Francisco Greek Film Festival, which is the largest Greek film festival in all of the country now, in all the United States. And doing a little bit of work with my church, and then Phil Angelides hired me to do his Greek American fundraising for his race for governor. So I sort of met a lot of people in the Greek community around the country at that point. But, this sort of draw to the homeland, was very strong. And every time I had a week off or something, I would fly to Athens from San Francisco. And every year I would spend my vacation here. And then finally, my best friend, Vince Calcagno, from Zuni said, "What are you doing? Just move to Greece. Are you crazy?" So I said, "You know what? You're right." So I packed up my bags in 2006. And in 2007, I moved to Greece.
And now you do have dual citizenship. You have both a Greek and a United States passport, correct?
I do. That took a little while. That took about, it's been in the papers, that Tom Hanks and Rita Wilson got their they were made honorary citizens of Greece. That's been all over the news the last couple of days. My story should be in the news too, because it took me 12 years to get my citizenship. But the classic, the famous Greek bureaucracy, but I got it.
Yes, yes. So, you built a career on fundraising, and we all know that fundraising is about not only who you ask, but when you ask. And now you are doing fundraising of another type. You are the executive director and one of the founders of the Hellenic Foundation, correct? Tell us about the work.
Yeah, it's called the Hellenic Initiative. I'm the executive director, and we raise money from Greeks in the diaspora all over the world to fund economic development projects in Greece. We support entrepreneurs, and we give money to charity groups, that are working to relieve pain and suffering, as a result of the financial crisis, the 10-year financial crisis in Greece, which we were just coming out of, and now sort of very, it feels very unfair, that all of a sudden, Greece was finally coming out of 10 years of a crisis, only to be thrown right back into a crisis. Because, even in sort of the darkest days, of the financial crisis, we still had tourism, and now tourism, which almost, some estimates put it at 40% of the country, is employed in tourism. Tourism's just taken a giant hit. So it's going to be a tough year for Greece.
I remember a few weeks ago seeing your prime minister on the island of Santorini, Thera, one of my favorite places on earth. And I recognized the Atlantis Hotel behind them and the Greek Orthodox Cathedral behind him. I mean, it just made my heart skip a beat. I spent many, many happy weeks on Santorini. And it is arguably one of the top tourist destinations in the world, not only Greece. And the streets were empty. What are you hearing about when Greece believes it will begin to start getting back to some semblance of a normal tourism economy?
Yeah, well, it's definitely not going to be this year. That's for sure. I mean, hopefully, if we continue doing things right, and we appear to be doing things right because we have extremely strong leadership. I mean, like you mentioned, our prime minister and all of his cabinet, the mayor of Athens, and all of the people that work with him. I mean, they have done a fantastic job, not only of making us all feel safe, but actually making us all safe. I mean, even during lockdown, you couldn't leave your home unless you sent an SMS message to the government, with a number corresponding to what it was that you were going to do. And then you had to wait for a response from the government in order to leave your home. So for instance, if I wanted to walk my dog, I had to SMS a 6 on my phone with my name, my address, what I was doing, and then wait for a reply in order to leave my house. I mean, I think that would have been something like that would have been very difficult in the United States, because everyone would have felt like, that was an infringement on their personal rights, but everyone here felt like that was their government protecting them, it wasn't Big Brother. And it did. I mean, Greece just yesterday, I think, went over, we went over the 200 death mark. So I think we have 201 people who have died of COVID in the whole country.
In the entire 5-month span of this pandemic.
That's it.
Yeah, Greece has been remarkably, I want to say spared, but also remarkably smart and savvy. I mean, you were joking about the Greek bureaucracy, and of course there are many jokes about that, but here is a country that is supposedly much less sophisticated than the United States, and you're able to tell people what you're doing and keep other people safe on your iPhone. And here we can't even get people to all wear a mask.
Well, I think, it was sort of this perfect storm of circumstances that happened. We had an election last year, where the previous government, Syriza, was voted out, and New Democracy was voted in. And, and the head of New Democracy, our prime minister, is Kyriakos Mitsotakis. He's such a strong leader. And, and I think the problem in Greece, a lot of times, we've had lots of strong leaders, but a lot of times the cabinet positions are very weak. But this time we have a super strong prime minister and a super strong cabinet, And so, we have these brilliant people, who many of whom have studied abroad, and so they have sort of an international or a worldwide sort of perspective on things, And so when, news was coming to Greece about what was happening in Italy, especially Italy, but also in Spain and the neighboring countries, this government just very quickly said, no, we're closing schools, we're closing restaurants, we're closing all these things. This is what we're going to do to protect the population. We're basically closing the border. We're stopping flights from different countries, et cetera. Every single day on the news, there was a briefing by, the Minister of Health, Minister of Protection, the Prime Minister, sort of telling us, giving us an update on what was going on. It was incredible, and it really made you feel safe because, just next door, in Italy, they were having over 1,000 deaths a day, and we were having none, and there was a real worry, that it was going to come to Greece, but I think we did, and our Minister of Health, if there was an outbreak somewhere, he was on a plane or a helicopter going there that day to figure out what was going on, to make a decision about what needed to happen in order to protect the rest of the population. Can't say enough good things about it, and so the sort of bureaucracy that we all complain about, in Greece, all of a sudden, we had a government that just, that all of a sudden there was trust in government where there'd never been trust in government before. And that's a great thing for Greece and for Greeks.
Well, I mean, Western democracy started in Greece. So who thought that the birthplace of democracy would now be teaching the second largest democracy in the world, the United States, some lessons? So what's the situation now, not only health-wise, but I understand right now you are on one of the islands, Paros, correct?
I am. I'm on Paros. Yeah.
So what are Greek citizens feeling like now? Is there a sense of optimism? Is there a sense of we've gotten through the worst of it? And how is Greece beginning to welcome back, well, the tourism industry? I mean, right now, myself, I can't go to Greece.
Yeah.
But if I do go, there's a 2-week quarantine, correct?
Yeah. I mean, I think Greeks, feel they're worried right now. I mean, they're very happy that our government took steps to like protect them, and their families, and that's been a great thing, because what's more valuable than like human life? Nothing. So that's a wonderful thing. But, because of the economy, because of tourism, because we went through 10 years of crisis already, we're sort of Greeks are like, okay, here's another crisis. We're sort of like, we're used to it, like we're like, and I, you and I have spoken about this before, and because the family unit's so strong, and because lots of times, an entire family lives in one building, so it'll be like a 4-floor apartment building, but mommy and daddy on one floor, the kids on another floor, yaya and poo papu on another floor, and aunt and uncle on another floor. So there's a big safety net, so even, in a situation like that, if only one person has a job, that job can potentially feed all those people in that building and pay all those bills, etc. So, I don't want to say there's necessarily a sense of optimism. The country's definitely opened up again now. I'm on Paros, we're getting busy again. I'm in the village of Naousa, and it's busy. Like the restaurants are busy. You can see the hotels are starting to fill up. It's not like what it normally is, but I also think that's a good thing, because quite honestly, it's gotten too busy. When I moved here in 2007, Greece broke all records that year of tourism, and we had something like, 15 million tourists that year. Last year, we had 32 million tourists, and that's too much. Like we don't, like Santorini, which you mentioned earlier, which is such a beautiful place. Well, it's not beautiful, when, you have 10 cruise ships, like pulling into the harbor and like all those people embarking and like flooding into town like every day, it's too much. It's too many people, too much consumerism, too much waste, too much of a strain on all of the resources. Greece is such a beautiful country, but, how much can one place take? How many tourists can one country take? So I think it's good that we've had a chance to pause. I think we need to reevaluate the kind of tourism we have. I think mass tourism is going to go away. I mean, I don't see it coming back anytime soon, and I think that could be a very good thing for Greece, because we have an opportunity here to sort of attract a better tourist, you have a better experience for people, and to also just sort of get back to basics, it's, people are coming here to sort of have an authentic experience. Well, let's give them an authentic experience.
Yeah, it's hard to have an authentic Greek experience between 8 a.m. and 2 p.m. when there's 5 cruise ships in the caldera of Santorini. I always feel
You're exactly right.
I always feel sorry for those poor burros taking up the, overweight.
Oh, I know. Horrible. It's horrible. It's horrible. But I mean, we are, as a country, we're lucky, and I think you probably read today, that we're sort of closing our borders with the Balkans, because, the cases are surging, in like Bulgaria, Romania, Serbia, other places, and so, people are going to have tests, in order to like come into the country. And of course, it's very difficult unless you have dual citizenship like me from America. It's almost impossible to get to Greece right now, although that's supposed to change August 1st. We're supposed to be welcoming people, from America back into Greece again. But it changes every day. You may have to get a test 72 hours before you leave that shows that you've had a negative, test result. And then you may have to get tested again once you get here. And a lot of even Greek Americans that I know that came here like a month ago or a month and a half ago, they landed in the airport. They were taken off the plane into a room where their throats were swabbed. Then they were put on a bus, taken to a hotel in downtown Athens where they had to wait for 24 hours. They were fed, like meals brought to their room and stuff, but they had to wait for 24 hours to get back their negative test result. Then they had to go home and they had to self-quarantine for 2 weeks. and you had to give your like home phone number because they could call you, and if you didn't answer, you could be fined. And there were lots of stories about people getting this famous €5,000 fine for like sort of traveling and breaking the quarantine. All those things sound a bit draconian, but it helped us.
Yeah.
And I think in the end, it's if we can get through this this summer, and people can make a little bit of money to sort of hold them over to next year, I think Greece is going to be high on a lot of people's lists as a destination to come to next year.
Yeah, well, certainly Alfredo and
so
I love Greece. It's no secret to you that I love Greece, so would love to come back. In our
Greece loves you.
Pardon me?
Greece loves you.
Thank you very much. In our closing minutes, what would you like to say to those people who want to visit Greece, but also, most importantly, what would you like to say to your fellow Greek citizens about this moment? Some words of wisdom or inspiration.
I think, like what I mentioned earlier about the family unit thing, my family all lives in the United States, yet I feel like I'm part of a big family here, and I think in some ways that's something we've lost a little bit in the United States, because everybody disperses, like you have your kids go, everyone's living in a different city all over the country, just sort of the geography and the size of the place makes it sort of difficult, to sort of even get together sometimes, unless you're the kind of family that like all settled down in like the same town, or in the same city. So, that there's really something beautiful about what happens, I feel like in the Mediterranean, in Spain and Italy, in the south of France and Greece and Cyprus, and other countries where, you have this very strong family unit, and even if you're not part of that family unit, I had friends checking in on me like all the time during like the lockdown, and like even like the guy, my taxi driver in Athens, like he was calling me all the time. The people that own the luggage shop downstairs from my house were calling me all the time because they know I live alone. They just wanted to make sure I was okay. Was everything all right? And I feel like there's a real lesson to be learned there. Like about kindness and about compassion, about caring for one another. Not these images I see in the United States, of people like screaming at each other, because somebody's wearing a mask in a supermarket. What is this? Stop that. Like we need to stop that. There needs to be like more compassion, more kindness, and I will be a better place, and I think Greece is really, and Italy and Spain, all these countries have shown like they've shown the rest of the world like how to do it properly. There's a big lesson to be learned here.
Yeah, the warmth of the Southern European countries is not just a cliche, it's real. I remember 21 years ago when I spent several months in Greece, I was instantly enfolded. Same thing, young man traveling alone by a family. The next thing you know, I have Anna and Nikos and Dimitri introducing me to all of their friends. And before you know it, I'm reading the Bible at church service on Sunday. Well, it's always a great pleasure to speak with you. And again, if someone wants to learn more about your work with the Hellenic Initiative, where should they go online to learn more about that?
Yeah, so you can go to www.thehellenicinitiative.org. We're also on Facebook. We're also on Instagram. We're on LinkedIn. But you can see all of our work at thehellenicinitiative.org. And you'll see all the organizations that we fund, and who we help. And the work that we're doing around the globe. And then also there's links there on the site to we have affiliated chapters, so there's links there to our sites in Australia and in Canada.
Well, hopefully we'll see you soon. Alfredo and I look forward to our next trip to Greece, either a wonderful drink or dinner in the Plaka or Monastiraki or somewhere on Paros. So I know it's the afternoon there, so I won't say goodbye or ahoy. I'll just say kalispera.
Kalispera to you as well.
Ahoy.
Bye.